My name is Augusta, 35 years old and Senior Investment Director at Meridian Capital Partners. I had been looking forward to celebrating my 7-year work anniversary until I saw that text message. 6 words from CEO Bradley Thompson shattered my professional confidence in seconds. After years of dedication, countless late nights, and millions secured, he humiliated me in our executive chat, where everyone could see. What he failed to realize was that I controlled that $42 million funding transfer, and I had finally reached my breaking point. Before I dive into how I took back my power, let me know where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up to a workplace bully. I never planned to work in finance. Growing up in a small town outside of Boston, I dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. But during my undergraduate studies in economics at Boston University, an inspiring professor recognized my talent with numbers and encouraged me to apply to Wharton Business School. Getting accepted felt like winning the lottery, but it was just the beginning of a challenging journey. Business school was brutal for women. In a class of 200, only 43 were female. Group projects meant constantly proving myself, having ideas overlooked until a male classmate repeated them, and navigating subtle assumptions about my capabilities. But those experiences hardened my resolve. I graduated in the top 10% of my class, determined to break barriers in investment banking. My first position at Goldman Wallace Financial was entry-level but demanding. 18-hour days were standard, weekends optional in name only. For 3 years, I built financial models, prepared client presentations, and watched male colleagues with half my qualifications receive promotions. When I finally gathered courage to ask my supervisor why I'd been passed over, he said, "Augusta, you're extremely competent, but clients feel more comfortable with men handling their millions." I resigned the following week. Joining Meridian Capital Partners was supposed to be different. During my interview, the company proudly highlighted their commitment to diversity and meritocracy. When I met Bradley Thompson, then Chief Operating Officer, he spoke passionately about recognizing talent regardless of gender. "At Meridian, we care about results, not what bathroom you use," he said with a charming smile. I was sold. Starting as a junior analyst, I quickly established myself by identifying overlooked investment opportunities. My analysis of emerging biotech startups led to an $8 million profit in my first year. By year 3, I managed a small team focusing on tech investments. Year 5 saw my promotion to director level. And by year 6, I became Senior Investment Director, one of only 2 women in Meridian's executive team. Meridian itself grew substantially during my tenure. When I joined, we managed just over $1 billion in assets. 7 years later, that number exceeded $4 billion. Our reputation for identifying promising startups before they exploded in value attracted wealthy individual investors and institutional clients alike. Bradley, now CEO, frequently referred to me as his secret weapon during client meetings. My specialty became evaluating tech companies seeking growth funding. I developed a rigorous evaluation framework that significantly reduced investment risks. Under my leadership, 92% of our tech investments yielded returns exceeding market averages. This track record granted me considerable autonomy, including final approval authority on major funding decisions. The Tech Fusion partnership represented my greatest achievement. Tech Fusion operated an elite accelerator program for advanced technology startups, selecting only 12 companies annually from thousands of applicants. Their graduates consistently achieved multi-million valuations within 2 years. After 8 months of negotiations, I secured Meridian exclusive first-look rights at Tech Fusion graduates. This partnership meant Meridian would provide $42 million in funding annually distributed among selected Tech Fusion startups. The arrangement promised exceptional returns while positioning us ahead of competing investment firms. Board members unanimously approved the deal, with Bradley publicly praising my extraordinary vision at the announcement party. The contract stipulated that I personally review each startup before fund dispersal. This responsibility included analyzing business models, evaluating technical capabilities, and assessing founder teams. My signature authorized the actual transfers, a power integrated into our financial systems through verification protocols. This control mechanism would later become crucial in ways I never anticipated. Bradley Thompson had transformed from supportive mentor to problematic leader gradually. As a COO, he had been hands-on, frequently checking in with team members and soliciting diverse opinions. His promotion to CEO 3 years ago coincided with landing several prestigious clients, including 2 billionaire tech entrepreneurs. The attention seemed to change him. Initially, the shifts were subtle. Bradley began interrupting female executives during meetings, while letting male colleagues speak uninterrupted. He assembled informal strategy sessions, excluding senior women but including junior male associates. Client dinners increasingly featured only men with excuses about keeping the group small or discussions about sports justifying the exclusions. I noticed, but made excuses. He's under tremendous pressure. The finance world is still adjusting to women leaders. Focus on results, not personality. Like many women, I compensated by working harder, preparing more thoroughly, and never showing vulnerability. Looking back, I enabled a culture that would eventually turn against me. The Tech Fusion deal required presenting to our board quarterly, updating them on startup selections and projected returns. The upcoming board meeting would announce our first round of funding recipients, 8 companies developing technologies from quantum computing to advanced medical devices. Preparing this presentation consumed weeks, as each investment needed comprehensive justification. Bradley seemed particularly interested, requesting frequent updates and suggesting last-minute changes to my carefully constructed slides. Little did I know how dramatically my professional life would change in the coming days. The first significant warning sign came during a leadership retreat 4 months before my work anniversary. During my presentation on investment strategy, Bradley repeatedly checked his phone, a behavior he criticized in others. When I shared data on our successful investments in women-led startups, he interjected, "Those are nice diversity points, Augusta. But let's focus on the major profit drivers." The major profit drivers included 3 women-led companies I had identified against his initial skepticism. After my presentation, Bradley presented his vision for Meridian's future. Strangely, many slides contained my analyses and recommendations repackaged without attribution. When questioned about specific projections, he directed technical questions to me but claimed strategic insights as his own. Several colleagues noticed, with our chief legal officer Jennifer whispering, "Is he seriously taking credit for your European market expansion model?" Team dynamics shifted too. Previously collaborative meetings became competitive, with Bradley encouraging debate that often targeted my recommendations. Male colleagues who once valued my expertise now questioned my judgment, often using nearly identical language to Bradley's private critiques. Emails requiring my input mysteriously went to everyone but me. Then decisions were made, citing my unavailability. I maintained professionalism, directly addressing concerns and continuing to deliver exceptional results. When a major client doubled their investment based specifically on my recommendations, Bradley took them to a celebratory dinner without inviting me. I learned about it when the client sent me a thank you gift with a note saying, "Sorry you couldn't join us last night." Despite these challenges, I remained committed to Meridian and our investors. My team still respected my leadership, and several board members specifically valued my perspective. I told myself focusing on work rather than politics would eventually vindicate my approach. My 7th work anniversary should have been a day of quiet celebration. Previous years had included small acknowledgments, team lunches, or at minimum, a sincere email from Bradley recognizing my contributions. I arrived early that Monday, bringing coffee and pastries for my immediate team members who had planned a brief morning celebration. Text messages from colleagues trickled in throughout the morning. Our receptionist, Amanda, left flowers on my desk with a card signed by operations staff. Jennifer from legal sent a gift basket with 7 small items representing each year. My direct reports coordinated lunch delivery from my favorite sushi restaurant. Even several clients sent congratulatory emails remembering the date from previous interactions. By mid-afternoon, I noted Bradley's silence but dismissed it as typical recent behavior. I focused instead on finalizing details for the Tech Fusion funding transfers scheduled for the following day. Each selected startup required customized agreements reflecting their specific technologies, founder arrangements, and growth projections. Additionally, I prepared supporting materials for Thursday's board presentation, including market analyses and competitive positioning for each company. The funding process itself was complex by design. After initial selection, startups provided detailed financial records, technical documentation, and growth plans. My team analyzed these materials, identified potential concerns, and negotiated terms ensuring both innovation support and investor protection. Final approval required multiple signatures, including mine as Senior Investment Director and either Bradley's as CEO or our CFO, Richard's authorization. Additionally, I controlled allocation of company resources to these startups beyond direct funding. Meridian provided corporate credit cards with carefully monitored limits for approved business expenses, access to our network of industry experts, and occasionally company vehicles for client meetings and investor demonstrations. These resources required my department's oversight and approval for regulatory compliance reasons. The responsibility weighed heavily, especially considering the potential impact on these young companies. A funding delay might mean missed market opportunities or inability to hire crucial talent. Throughout my career, I prided myself on thorough but efficient processes, never allowing bureaucracy to impede innovation. My reputation among startups as a fair, insightful investor meant Tech Fusion founders trusted my judgment. Tech Fusion executives Thomas and Sarah had been in contact throughout the day, confirming final details and expressing excitement about the partnership. Thomas particularly noted how my direct involvement reassured their founders about Meridian's commitment to understanding technical innovations, not just financial returns. Your technical questions saved Quantum Synapse from a major architecture flaw, he reminded me. That's the value we wanted in a funding partner. My personal investment in Meridian went far beyond professional advancement. I had sacrificed countless evenings, weekends, and even relationships for this career. 3 years earlier, my fiancé ended our engagement, citing my marriage to Meridian as the primary reason. Holidays spent reviewing investment opportunities instead of visiting family had become normal. Even my apartment reflected this reality, with the second bedroom converted to a home office rather than the nursery my mother occasionally hinted about. Diana from marketing became my closest workplace ally and personal friend, understanding the unique pressures facing executive women. She stopped by my office late that anniversary afternoon, bringing a small gift and much-needed perspective. 7 years of breaking barriers deserves recognition, she insisted, placing a beautiful pen on my desk. For signing all those big checks to deserving founders, she added with a smile. Our conversation turned to the upcoming board meeting and Tech Fusion presentation. Diana offered communications support, suggesting ways to make technical details accessible to less technical board members. As we discussed the presentation flow, I mentioned needing to confirm final logistics with Bradley. Has he acknowledged your anniversary? Diana asked carefully. Not yet, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. But the Tech Fusion deal is keeping everyone busy. Diana's expression revealed her thoughts, but she simply said, "You deserve better, Augusta. Your work transformed Meridian." I appreciated her loyalty, but changed the subject. Success required focus on results, not recognition. At least, that's what I told myself. The day before the board meeting found me working late in my office, surrounded by presentation materials and legal documents, awaiting final signatures. My assistant had left hours earlier after helping organize the board packets. The office stood nearly empty at 8:30, with only security guards and a few dedicated analysts remaining. I had spent the afternoon coordinating with our finance team on transfer logistics. Each startup would receive their funding through specialized accounts, ensuring both transparency and appropriate milestone controls. Our system required my digital authorization, followed by secondary approval from either Bradley or Richard. I had prepared all necessary documentation for the morning transfers, allowing adequate processing time before our 4 o'clock board meeting. Bradley had requested several last-minute changes to the presentation, including additional competitive analysis and more detailed founder backgrounds. These changes added valuable context, but required significant work. Rather than delegating, I handled these updates personally, wanting to ensure perfect accuracy for such a momentous partnership announcement. Around 9, I received text messages from several TechFusion founders expressing excitement about the funding. Sarah from TechFusion checked whether I needed anything further from their teams before morning. Their enthusiasm reminded me why I endured the politics and long hours. Supporting visionary entrepreneurs created actual value beyond investment returns. At 9:45, I realized I hadn't confirmed the boardroom setup for tomorrow's presentation. Our facilities team would have handled basics, but I wanted to verify the video conferencing arrangements for 2 remote board members. Rather than bothering the facilities director at home, I sent a quick message to our executive chat group, which included Bradley, Richard, Jennifer, and other department heads. Quick logistics check for tomorrow's TechFusion presentation. Will the Westside conference room be set up for video by 3:30? Need to test connection with Ron and Patricia dialing in remotely. I returned to finalizing slides, expecting a brief confirmation from someone. 5 minutes later, my phone chimed with a notification. Bradley had responded in the group chat. I glanced down, expecting a simple confirmation or redirection to facilities. Instead, I read, "No one's coming to your board meeting. Grow up." I stared at the screen, certain I had misunderstood. The board meeting had been scheduled for months. All 8 board members had confirmed attendance. The TechFusion funding represented a cornerstone of our annual strategy. $42 million would transfer tomorrow pending my authorization. What could he possibly mean? I read the message again. The all-caps formatting left no doubt about his tone. The executive team members, people I worked alongside daily, had all received this message. My face burned with humiliation as I imagined them reading his dismissive, infantilizing response. On my work anniversary, no less. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Dozens of potential responses flashed through my mind, from professional clarification to justified outrage. Instead, I typed simply, "Understood." I set down my phone and noticed my hands trembling. My heart raced as adrenaline surged through my body. 7 years of dedication, countless successes, millions in profit generated, all to be treated with such casual contempt in front of my peers. In that moment, something fundamental broke inside me. I gathered my laptop and papers mechanically, no longer seeing the carefully prepared materials. In the empty bathroom down the hall, I locked myself in a stall and took deep breaths, fighting unexpected tears. Professional women don't cry at work. We especially don't cry over text messages from difficult bosses. Yet here I was, a Harvard-educated investment director, with signing authority over millions hiding in a bathroom stall. After several minutes, my phone buzzed with a private message from Diana. "Just saw that exchange. Are you still in the office?" That was completely unacceptable. "Third floor bathroom," I replied, embarrassed but grateful. Diana appeared minutes later, concern etched across her face. What the hell was that about? "The board meeting is definitely happening," I confirmed with Jennifer earlier today. "I have no idea," I admitted, finally regaining composure. "Maybe he's canceling my part specifically. Presenting himself instead. Without the person who structured the entire deal impossible." Diana handed me a tissue. "This is just more of his power games. He's been undermining you for months." I wiped my eyes, careful not to smudge makeup in case I encountered anyone else. I should finish the presentation anyway. If he's taking over, he'll need the slides. "Augusta," Diana said firmly, "at what point do you stop accepting this treatment?" He publicly humiliated you on your work anniversary. This goes beyond professional disagreement. Her words struck harder than I expected. How long had I been normalizing increasingly disrespectful behavior, making excuses for a boss who would never treat male colleagues this way? Working harder to prove my value to someone determined to diminish me. "Let me get you home," Diana offered. "The presentation is ready. Whatever game he's playing can wait until morning." I agreed, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. We walked to the parking garage together, Diana maintaining conversation about non-work topics, clearly trying to distract me. Before getting into my car, I thanked her for the support. "Just promise you'll think about what I said," she replied. "You deserve respect, Augusta. We all do." Driving home through light evening traffic, Bradley's message played repeatedly in my mind. "Grow up." As if professional courtesy about a multi-million-dollar deal was somehow childish. As if seeking basic logistical confirmation showed immaturity. As if my 7 years of dedicated service counted for nothing. By the time I reached my apartment, humiliation had transformed into something more potent clarity. Sleep proved impossible that night. I paced my living room, replaying not just that evening's exchange, but countless interactions over recent months. Patterns emerged with painful clarity. The gradual exclusion from strategic discussions. Credit for my work consistently flowing upward while blame flowed down. The subtle undermining in meetings. Different standards for male and female executives, all building toward that public humiliation. At midnight, I pulled out my employment contract, reading it thoroughly for the first time since signing. My position description explicitly included final authorization of investment disbursements and ensuring regulatory compliance for all transactions. Additionally, I reviewed Meridian's professional conduct policies, which prohibited communications that reasonably create a hostile work environment and required respectful interactions among all staff, regardless of position. At 1 a.m, I called my former business school professor, now retired but still a trusted mentor. After explaining the situation, I asked her advice. "What would you tell a friend facing identical circumstances?" she asked. "To document everything and consult an attorney," I replied immediately. "And what would you tell a man in your position with your authority?" That question stopped me cold. I realized I had been socialized to accept treatment no male executive would tolerate for a moment. My mentor reminded me that using legitimate authority wasn't retaliation but professional responsibility. By 2, I had drafted emails to our board, legal team, and finance department. I saved them to review with fresher eyes before sending. At 3, I finally fell into restless sleep, awakening at 6, with newfound determination. Before heading to the office, I carefully reviewed my role in our funding processes. As Senior Investment Director, I had fiduciary responsibility to ensure all investments met regulatory requirements and aligned with documented strategies. My electronic signature literally controlled the fund transfers. While theoretically Bradley or Richard could override my decisions, doing so required board notification and formal documentation of reasons. More importantly, my review of recent communications revealed something concerning. Bradley had apparently promised Tech Fusion founders additional benefits beyond our authorized agreement. Several emails referenced accelerated payment schedules, reduced milestone requirements, and resource allocations never presented to our investment committee. These modifications significantly increased investor risk without corresponding protections. I contacted my personal attorney before leaving home briefly, outlining the situation without naming Meridian specifically. Her advice was clear: your fiduciary duty to investors supersedes loyalty to any individual, including your CEO. Document your concerns objectively and act according to established protocols. Arriving at the office by 8, I greeted my team normally, giving no indication of last night's incident or my developing response. At 8:30, I sent a carefully worded email to our finance department. After final review of Tech Fusion documentation, I am identifying several compliance concerns requiring resolution before fund disbursement. Please hold all scheduled transfers pending further notification. I take full responsibility for any timing impacts and will communicate directly with relevant parties. Documentation forthcoming. I copied Richard and our compliance officer Sandra, but deliberately excluded Bradley. Within minutes, our finance director Thomas responded with confusion but confirmed the hold. Richard called immediately. Augusta, what compliance issues? Everything was cleared yesterday. He sounded genuinely puzzled. I discovered several unauthorized modifications to the agreement terms, I explained calmly. Additionally, I have concerns about proper governance procedures that need addressing before I can authorize the transfers. Bradley won't be happy about delays, Richard warned. I understand, but my fiduciary responsibility requires proper diligence. I'll explain fully in writing today. Richard paused before responding quietly. This wouldn't have anything to do with that inappropriate message last night, would it? So he had recognized the unprofessionalism too. My concerns are entirely compliance-related, I stated truthfully. Though professional communication is certainly part of proper governance. After hanging up, I methodically documented the unauthorized promises Bradley had made, comparing them against approved terms. I assembled emails, meeting notes, and contract language demonstrating the discrepancies. Additionally, I prepared a detailed timeline of Bradley's increasingly hostile behavior, including specific instances with dates, witnesses, and direct quotations. By noon, I had completed a comprehensive report, addressing both governance concerns and workplace conduct issues. I sent it to our board chairperson, Andrew, our chief legal officer, Jennifer, and HR director, Patricia, requesting confidential review. My email emphasized that I was following proper channels for serious concerns, not seeking personal advantages. Simultaneously, I messaged Sandra in compliance, asking her to conduct an independent review of recent executive expenses. Standard quarterly audit. I explained, though, the timing was deliberate. If Bradley was making unauthorized promises to TechFusion, other governance issues might exist as well. By early afternoon, I received confirmation that the funding transfers remained on hold. I also learned from Jennifer that she was reviewing my report and would respond soon. Meanwhile, I continued normal work activities, including preparations for the board meeting that Bradley had so dismissively referenced. I knew the confrontation was inevitable, but I would face it fully prepared. Bradley's reaction came with predictable fury. At 2:15, he burst into my office without knocking, face flushed with anger. What the hell do you think you're doing? The transfers were scheduled for this morning. I remained seated, maintaining professional composure despite my racing heart. I identified several compliance concerns that require resolution before I can authorize the transfers. What compliance concerns? I reviewed everything personally. He loomed over my desk, an intimidation tactic I recognized but refused to acknowledge. There appear to be unauthorized modifications to the approved terms, I stated evenly. Additionally, after your message last night, I'm unclear about the status of today's board meeting where these investments were to be formally announced. That was about logistics, not the meeting itself, he said dismissively. You're being oversensitive. Now release those funds immediately. I've documented my concerns and shared them with appropriate parties, I replied. Once those issues are resolved, I'll gladly complete the transfers. Bradley's expression darkened dangerously. Do you understand what you're doing? TechFusion has 8 companies waiting for this funding. Their operations depend on it. This tantrum could damage our relationship permanently. I'm fulfilling my fiduciary responsibility, I countered. If you'd like to discuss the specific compliance concerns professionally, I'm happy to review them with you and the compliance team. This is about last night's message, isn't it? He demanded. For God's sake, Augusta, it was late, and I was irritated about something unrelated. Stop being so emotional and do your job. The gaslighting attempt was so transparent it almost made me laugh. Instead, I maintained steady eye contact. My job includes ensuring proper governance for all investments. I'm doing exactly that. "I can override your authorization," he threatened. "You can certainly try," I acknowledged, though that would require formal board notification and documentation of reasons for bypassing standard protocols. I've already shared my concerns with Chairperson Andrew. Bradley's face registered shock, then calculation. He clearly hadn't expected me to involve board members. "You've made a serious miscalculation," he said quietly. "I built this company. The board trusts my leadership implicitly. Then I'm sure they'll provide appropriate guidance after reviewing all the facts," I replied. He left without another word, slamming my door hard enough to rattle the glass. I released a shaky breath, then continued documenting the interaction while details remained fresh. My next steps required precision. Following my earlier conversation with Sandra in compliance, I reviewed executive resource allocation, discovering Bradley had assigned himself the most expensive company car, justifying it for client development. Our policy specified vehicles based on position requirements, not status. As Senior Investment Director managing client relationships daily, I had authority to review and adjust these allocations. I sent a formal directive to our operations department. "Please reassign Vehicle A7, currently allocated to CEO, to the General Executive Pool effective immediately. CEO travel needs can be accommodated through standard car service arrangements per policy section 5.3. Additionally, I requested a comprehensive audit of executive corporate card usage. My preliminary review showed Bradley's card regularly exceeded authorized limits for entertainment expenses, often without required documentation. As the executive responsible for final financial compliance, I had clear authority to temporarily suspend cards pending review. Effective immediately. Please place administrative holds on the following corporate cards. Pending compliance review. I instructed our finance controller listing Bradley's card and 2 others frequently used for his expenses. By 3:30, the operations director confirmed the vehicle reassignment, though his message included, "Bradley won't like this." The finance controller similarly confirmed the card suspensions, adding, "Should I inform the cardholders, or will you handle that communication?" "Please follow standard protocol for compliance reviews," I replied, knowing this meant automatic notifications would be sent. At 3:45, I headed to the boardroom, presentation materials prepared regardless of Bradley's cryptic message. To my slight surprise, board members were indeed arriving, greeting me warmly as usual. Chairperson Andrew pulled me aside briefly. "Received your report," he said quietly. "Extremely concerning. We'll need to discuss further after this meeting." I nodded gratefully, relieved my concerns were being taken seriously. As other executives arrived, I noticed subtle changes in their behavior toward me. Richard made a point of asking my opinion about market projections. Jennifer positioned herself beside me rather than Bradley. Even executives usually aligned with Bradley maintained professional distance from him today. Bradley himself arrived last, expression controlled, but eyes burning with barely contained rage. He took his usual position at the head of the table, but seemed disconcerted by the changed dynamics. When he attempted to skip my presentation segment, Andrew intervened. "I believe Augusta should present the Tech Fusion details since she structured the entire partnership," our chairperson stated firmly. My presentation proceeded professionally despite the tension. I outlined the investment rationale, company selections, and expected returns without mentioning the current hold on transfers. When board member Patricia asked about disbursement timing, I simply stated, "We're conducting final compliance reviews before releasing funds, ensuring all governance requirements are satisfied." Bradley interjected minor administrative details. "Everything will process tomorrow." Andrew's gaze shifted between us, clearly sensing the underlying conflict. "Perhaps we should discuss these compliance reviews in our executive session." After the main meeting concluded and non-board executives were dismissed, Andrew addressed me directly. "Augusta, please explain these compliance concerns specifically." I presented the evidence, methodically sharing documented discrepancies between approved terms and Bradley's unauthorized promises. Additionally, I outlined the resource allocation issues discovered during standard reviews. Only after establishing these objective concerns did I address the hostile work environment, including Bradley's public humiliation attempt. While I would typically address professional conduct concerns separately, I explained I believe these behavioral issues potentially connect to the governance problems. When accountability questions arise, all aspects of leadership require examination. Several board members appeared genuinely shocked by the evidence presented. Bradley attempted to dismiss my concerns as administrative nitpicking and characterized my actions as emotional overreaction to constructive feedback. Board member Thomas, previously silent, finally spoke. Telling an executive, "No one's coming to your meeting," and to grow up in a group message constitutes constructive feedback. In what professional context is that appropriate? Bradley had no adequate response. After nearly an hour of discussion, Andrew announced, "The board will need to consider these matters carefully. In the meantime, Augusta, please continue your compliance review. Bradley, we expect full cooperation with this process." As the meeting adjourned, my phone displayed a message from TechFusion CEO Thomas Hearing concerning things about funding delays. "Can we discuss urgently?" I agreed to call him immediately, knowing this conversation would be delicate but necessary. "Augusta, what's happening?" Thomas asked when I reached him. "Bradley assured us transfers would complete this morning. Our companies have commitments based on that timing." I explained carefully I've identified several discrepancies between our approved agreement terms and what was apparently communicated to your founders. "I'm working to resolve these issues as quickly as possible." "What discrepancies?" Thomas sounded genuinely confused. I outlined several examples: accelerated payments without milestone requirements, resource allocations beyond approved limits, and reporting exemptions never authorized by our investment committee. Thomas was silent momentarily before responding. "Bradley assured us these modifications were fully approved. He specifically said you had signed off on everything." "I'm afraid that's not accurate," I stated. "These changes substantially increase investor risk without corresponding protections. I cannot in good conscience authorize transfers under these terms." "I understand your position," Thomas said finally. "To be honest, some of these terms seemed surprisingly favorable. Bradley was extremely eager to close the deal, even when we expressed concerns about certain aspects. This confirmed my suspicions about Bradley's motivations. I value our partnership, Thomas. I propose we pause, properly document the actual approved terms, and proceed with full transparency. The core funding is still very much available, just with appropriate governance." "That actually sounds preferable from our perspective," Thomas admitted. "Our founders want sustainable partnerships, not just quick cash. When can we restart this process properly?" "I'll send revised documentation tomorrow," I promised. "With your cooperation, we can likely complete proper transfers within 5 business days." "We'll work with that timeline," Thomas agreed. "And Augusta, thank you for your integrity. It matters more than speed." That conversation provided unexpected validation of my professional judgment. The partnership wasn't at risk, only Bradley's unauthorized version was problematic. With renewed confidence, I prepared for whatever came next. The emergency board meeting convened early the following morning. I arrived prepared with comprehensive documentation, organized for maximum clarity. Each board member received a folder containing evidence separated into 3 categories: governance concerns, unauthorized commitments, and professional conduct issues. Additionally, I included independent verification from compliance and finance teams confirming my findings. The boardroom atmosphere felt noticeably different. Security personnel stationed discreetly outside raised questions about decisions made overnight. Bradley arrived last, accompanied by an external attorney I didn't recognize, his expression alternating between confidence and barely concealed fury. Andrew opened the meeting solemnly. Yesterday, serious concerns were raised regarding governance, compliance, and professional conduct. We've convened to address these matters and determine appropriate actions. Augusta, please present your complete assessment. For the next 45 minutes, I methodically presented evidence without emotional language or personal accusations. I demonstrated how Bradley had circumvented established investment protocols, made unauthorized commitments, increasing company risk, and systematically undermined female executives while taking credit for their work. I concluded with documentation of increasingly hostile communications culminating in the public executive chat humiliation. My concerns are not personal grievances, I emphasized. They reflect systematic governance failures, potentially exposing Meridian to significant regulatory and reputational risks. I've taken only actions within my explicit authority to protect our investors and company integrity. Bradley's attorney attempted to interrupt several times, but Andrew firmly maintained meeting protocol. When my presentation concluded, Bradley finally spoke. This elaborate presentation represents nothing but retaliation for management feedback, he claimed dismissively. Augusta has consistently demonstrated sensitivity to routine criticism. When I questioned her excessive focus on board meeting logistics rather than substantive preparation, she responded by unilaterally disrupting a $42 million strategic partnership. His characterization so blatantly misrepresented reality that several board members visibly reacted with skepticism. Furthermore, Bradley continued these so-called unauthorized commitments were verbal clarifications entirely within my authority as CEO. The vehicle and credit card allegations represent petty attempts to embarrass me professionally. I remained silent, letting the evidence speak for itself. Jennifer from legal spoke next. Confirming her independent review had validated my compliance concerns. Richard similarly confirmed financial irregularities extending beyond the Tech Fusion situation, including several instances of documentation being retroactively modified after my initial reviews. The most damaging testimony came unexpectedly from Diana, invited to share communications evidence. She presented a documented pattern of Bradley systematically excluding female executives from strategic discussions while claiming their work as his own. She included statements from multiple employees describing a culture of favoritism and intimidation. We've lost 7 female vice presidents in 2 years, she noted. Exit interviews consistently cite leadership communication issues and lack of recognition as primary reasons. Bradley's defense increasingly relied on attacking my character rather than addressing substantive concerns. His attorney suggested I had professional jealousy and personal motives for undermining his leadership. When board member Patricia asked specifically about the executive chat message, Bradley claimed it was clearly a joke taken out of context. After 3 hours of presentations and questions, Andrew asked Bradley and me to step outside while the board deliberated. We waited in separate conference rooms, the tension palpable even through walls. Nearly 2 hours later, Andrew summoned me to his private office. His expression revealed little about their decision. The board has reviewed all evidence thoroughly, he began formally. We find the compliance and governance concerns substantiated and extremely serious. Effective immediately, Bradley has been placed on administrative leave pending complete investigation. I maintained professional composure despite my shock. Thank you for taking these concerns seriously. Additionally, Andrew continued, we're appointing you acting chief executive officer during this transition. Your demonstrated commitment to governance and compliance is exactly what Meridian needs right now. This I hadn't expected. That's a significant responsibility. One you've proven ready for through your actions, Andrew stated. The board unanimously agrees you've demonstrated exceptional leadership under difficult circumstances. The following hours passed in a blur of transitions. Bradley was escorted from the building while I received temporary access to executive systems. HR Director Patricia handled immediate staff communications, while Jennifer began a comprehensive legal review of potentially compromised agreements. By day's end, I'd moved into the temporary CEO office, still processing this dramatic reversal. Our public relations team worked overnight, preparing a carefully worded statement. Meridian Capital Partners announces leadership transition following internal governance review. Augusta, last name, appointed acting chief executive officer while Bradley Thompson takes administrative leave. Business continues. uninterrupted with full commitment to partners and investors. Market reaction proved surprisingly positive. Our stock price increased 6% by closing the following day, interpreted as confidence in stronger governance. Several major clients called personally to express support, many mentioning their positive previous experiences working with me. Within 3 days, I initiated a reset of the Tech Fusion partnership. Meeting directly with Thomas and their leadership team, I explained, "We remain fully committed to this relationship, but need to ensure proper documentation and governance. Let's rebuild this agreement with transparency and appropriate protections for everyone involved." Thomas proved remarkably understanding. "We value partners with integrity more than those offering unsustainable terms. Let's create something built to last." Together, we restructured the agreement with proper milestone requirements, realistic payment schedules, and transparent reporting obligations. The revised funding package totaled $38 million rather than $42 million, but included additional technical support resources. Tech Fusion founders actually valued more highly than pure cash. The board unanimously approved these revised terms within 1 week. Throughout this period, I received surprising support from previously silent colleagues. Several senior executives privately admitted they'd witnessed Bradley's problematic behavior but feared career consequences of speaking up. Junior team members sent grateful messages about feeling respected for the first time. 3 recently departed female executives contacted me about potentially returning to Meridian under new leadership. Several competing investment firms reached out with employment offers, clearly seeing the situation as an opportunity to recruit me. Despite significantly higher compensation packages, I declined these approaches, committed to reforming Meridian's culture from within. The challenge of transformation appealed to me more than walking away. Most validating was the private meeting with board chairman Andrew 3 weeks after the initial confrontation. He arrived at my office late one evening, clearly having thought carefully about his words. "The board wishes to formally apologize for allowing this situation to develop," he began. "Multiple warning signs were evident in retrospect. We failed in our oversight responsibilities. The important thing is addressing it now," I replied. "We've unanimously voted to remove acting from your title," Andrew continued. "If you're willing, we'd like you to become Meridian's permanent CEO effective immediately." The offer represented everything I'd worked toward professionally, yet arrived through circumstances I'd never imagined. After brief consideration, I accepted the position with one condition: I'll need full authority to implement cultural and governance reforms. "You've earned that authority," Andrew agreed. "Lead Meridian toward the company it should have been all along." With formal appointment came both vindication and enormous responsibility. The path forward would require both healing and transformation. My first months as CEO included moments of doubt, despite external confidence. Late nights in my new office, I questioned decisions and second-guessed strategies. Had I overreacted to Bradley's message? Was I prepared for this level of leadership? The voice of self-doubt felt familiar to many professional women, suddenly elevated to positions they've earned. But society hasn't prepared them to expect. Therapy proved essential for processing the workplace trauma properly. My therapist helped identify how I'd normalized increasingly toxic behavior, making excuses for treatment I would never accept from friends or family. Professional environments can gaslight us into accepting the unacceptable, she observed. Recognizing your worth wasn't emotional, it was healthy. Building my leadership style required conscious choices about organizational culture. Rather than simply avoiding Bradley's negative behaviors, I articulated positive principles: transparent communication, credit sharing, meritocratic advancement, and respectful disagreement. Early executive meetings included uncomfortable but necessary discussions about past patterns and future expectations. Creating a mentorship program for women in finance became personal priority. Called Meridian Momentum, the initiative paired promising female professionals with senior leaders across departments. Additionally, I established quarterly forums where junior team members could present directly to executives, ensuring visibility for emerging talent regardless of gender. The balance between assertiveness and compassion proved challenging but essential. Addressing performance issues required directness but never public humiliation. Difficult conversations happened privately, focused on specific behaviors rather than character judgments. When tough decisions became necessary, I explained reasoning transparently, acknowledging impacts while maintaining necessary boundaries. Meridian itself transformed gradually but meaningfully. New harassment policies provided clear examples of unacceptable behavior and streamlined reporting processes. An anonymous feedback system allowed employees to raise concerns without fear of retaliation. Hiring committees required diverse representation, reducing unconscious bias in selections. Performance reviews incorporated 360-degree feedback, preventing single managers from blocking advancement. These changes met initial resistance from those benefiting from previous systems. Several executives accustomed to preferential treatment under Bradley's leadership eventually departed. Others adapted surprisingly well, admitting privately that merit-based advancement actually reduced workplace politics they'd found exhausting. Within 6 months, employee satisfaction scores improved 38%, with particular gains among previously underrepresented groups. Tech Fusion partnership flourished under properly structured terms. Our first cohort of funded startups achieved significant milestones, with 2 securing additional investment at increased valuations. Thomas frequently cited our relationship as exemplary in industry publications, emphasizing how proper governance actually accelerated innovation by creating sustainable growth conditions. Personally, reconnecting with values beyond professional achievement brought unexpected benefits. I established firm boundaries around working hours, declining non-emergency calls after 8 and reclaiming weekends for personal renewal. I rekindled neglected friendships, joined a community garden project, and even began casual dating after years of work-focused isolation. My confidence grew with each successful quarter. Presenting to the board transformed from anxiety-inducing performance to collaborative strategy discussion. Client relationships deepened beyond transactions to genuine partnerships. Media profiles shifted from female CEO novelty to substantive coverage of investment innovations. Most importantly, I stopped constantly proving my worth and simply embodied my capabilities. The experience fundamentally changed my understanding of professional self-advocacy. Standing up for proper treatment wasn't selfish or emotional, but essential for organizational health. Documentation protected not just my career, but everyone, depending on proper governance. Financial leadership carried responsibilities beyond profit to ethical standards and human dignity. 1 year after that fateful text message, I stood before our expanded team at Meridian's annual gathering. Looking across faces reflecting significantly greater diversity than 12 months prior, I shared reflections on our journey. A year ago, I faced a critical choice between accepting disrespect or standing firmly for proper governance and professional dignity. That moment taught me our individual actions create the environments we work within. When we accept mistreatment, we normalize it for everyone. When we require respect, we elevate standards for all. Meridian today manages 20% more assets than last year, with client retention exceeding 96%. Our investment returns outperform industry averages while maintaining ethical standards others consider optional. Most importantly, our culture now reflects our highest values, not just our market position. The lesson I carry forward is that true leadership requires both courage and compassion. The courage to maintain standards when pressure builds to compromise. The compassion to create environments where everyone can contribute their best work. Together, these principles create not just profitable companies but worthy ones. The applause that followed reflected not celebration of me personally but collective pride in the transformation we'd achieved together. The journey from humiliation to leadership had changed not just my career but my understanding of what professional environments could and should be. If you've ever faced workplace disrespect or struggled to advocate for yourself professionally, I hope my story offers both encouragement and practical guidance. Standing up for proper treatment isn't career suicide, but often the foundation for greater impact. Have you experienced similar situations in your professional life? How did you respond? Share your story in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe for more perspectives on navigating challenging workplace dynamics. I'm especially interested in hearing how documentation and clear boundaries helped you maintain professionalism while addressing difficult situations. Thank you for joining me in this reflection. And remember, your worth isn't determined by those who fail to recognize it, but by your courage to honor it regardless.